Well, guys, after last week's masterful origin story, Watchmen goes full force with its most relentless and shocking episode yet.
Don't change the channel, don't touch that dial. We got it all on UHF. Take off your sneakers.
Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Watchmen Season 1, Episode 7, An Almost Religious Awe, and holy shit, guys, what another incredible episode this was. Coming off the heels of last week, I was very excited to see where the show was going, and once again, they delivered another very shocking episode, but also, I mean, a lot of people were saying in the beginning of this season how, things were happening too slowly and they weren't revealing enough, and I mean, you get to this episode, and I mean, they are just going all out. This episode was nuts. There was so much that we found out in this episode. There's still obviously a lot that's up in the air, but they're doing a really good job of slowly rolling things out, and we're very quickly getting to that payoff, and oh my god, I just loved pretty much everything about this one, but we're just getting into it right now. So, before we get into the actual events of the episode, there is one thing I want to talk about. A lot of people have been bringing this up in reviews, and I just have not really paid a lot of attention to the PDpedias. If you don't know what that is, basically, if you watch the show on HBO every single week, there's this website you can go to. It's basically a list of documents and supplements that are connected to the show, and I never really paid it all that mind because I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't have to read another piece of media to understand that piece of media. I'm a very big, believer in that, but considering that there's a lot of things in there that reveal a lot of things in the show, and especially for last week, now I feel like I need to start paying more attention to that. And I actually think it's a really genius idea what they're doing, because anything they can't include in the episode or any sort of confusion you have, you can look at the PDpedia and kind of in a humorous way realize what's actually going on. So one big thing that, one big development that was not addressed in this episode because it was addressed in the PDpedia, which the show assumes you are reading, which I think is a good idea for the most part, is that when Angela was under this heavy dose of nostalgia, she experienced, she took such a heavy dose that she experienced this thing where she would basically say everything that we saw in the flashbacks out loud, so anyone that was there knows everything that Will went through. Lori knows it, Petey knows it, Lady True now knows it, so that's something really big to keep in mind moving forward. There really is no hiding who Hooded Justice is anymore, so you kind of think, okay, maybe American Hero Story is going to get more scrutiny and things like that because now they know more about Hooded Justice, but I just thought there was a very interesting development and something that I didn't touch upon last week, and I feel foolish for not doing that. So moving forward, I am definitely going to talk more about the PDpedias because they clearly do play a vital role in the show. There's something that I think are actually, like I said, kind of a fun way of getting out some more information, clarifying some things, seeing where other characters' heads are at, and definitely for these next few episodes, I'm definitely going to be putting a little bit more attention in covering what was in the PDpedia because, for all I know, it might not be addressed in the show at all. But again, if you guys were upset that I wasn't covering that, moving forward I will, so yeah. So, where to begin, really? I mean, there was so much that went down in this episode. I think we'll just get right into this reveal because, holy shit, look, yes, this is similar, this is kind of a Westworld situation where people did in fact predict that this was a thing, but I'm gonna say the same thing I said with Westworld that I'm saying for this, is that the reveal that happened is the right one. This was absolutely the right direction to go in for sure. And I don't really see how else this could have worked. I mean, there were hints that there was something off about Cal. He was very much an outsider. The way that he would interact, he was always paranoid. So it kind of makes sense that this reveal ends up happening, that he is in fact Dr. Manhattan. But what I didn't expect is basically the notion that he isn't aware that he's Dr. Manhattan. He is paranoid, but he doesn't realize that he actually is Dr. Manhattan in that way. But Angela, on the other hand, does know who he really is. And I think that's a really, really interesting idea. And I think this whole twist really just enriches everything. And I'm very excited to see where things go moving forward, because now we have a much clearer idea of what this is really all about. This isn't just for Angela. Her protecting herself, it's not just about herself, it's protecting her husband and her entire family as well, because she has been harboring Dr. Manhattan all this time, but nobody else, including Cal, knows that that actually is Dr. Manhattan. And I think that's a very interesting idea for sure. And I think the show did a really good job with bringing him up every so often, but not making it seem like there was that much else to it. So by doing this, it makes it that much more impressive. The show was purposefully not bring him up much to kind of get us to forget about it, to then pull the rug out. And now I have no idea where this is really going to go. I mean, on one hand, we now know that she has in fact proven to him that he is Dr. Manhattan, but we now saw like this blue light and things like that. And yeah, I think this has I'm just very excited to see where this is going to go. And I just think overall this is a really interesting twist, because again, it's no longer just Angela protecting herself, but now Cal was already a big part of this story, but now it makes sense why that was so focused on, but also why they were keeping that relationship so secretive, because there were so little details that we know. Now we know a lot more of what's going on there, and I can't wait to see where they're going to take it moving forward, because I think this is such a brilliant idea. And it makes sense, too, because, again, Dr. Manhattan has faced so much scrutiny over the years. I mean, people view him as, like, this terrorist of sorts. You know, people, they don't see him as the actual hero that he was, so it makes sense that he had to go into hiding. But I like the fact that he's not on Mars. He's on Earth. He wanted to be able to live his life. And I kind of have the inkling that Lori might know too, because remember, she's the one who called him on that phone booth and things like that. So there is a possibility that maybe Lori feeling the way she does towards Cal, because we know Lori would make these, you know, jokingly humorous innuendos about Cal. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that he actually is Dr. Manhattan. Again, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I really do feel like they set this up quite well. I think this is a fantastic reveal, and I just can't wait to see what it does for the show moving forward. It really does change pretty much everything, and I love really everything about this reveal. But of course, the majority of this episode is really getting more into Angela's past and things like that. Obviously, because she took this heavy dose of nostalgia, Lady True is the only one that can jog. And considering that Lady True is the one that created nostalgia, she's really the only one that can help her, you know, get her memories back and things like that. But basically, because she took such a heavy overdose, her memory's starting to overwrite. And not only is her memory starting to overwrite these, you know, Will's memories, where every so often she's still seeing a memory that's not her own, but she actually can't come face to face with Will now because of the fact that it's going to, because, you know, she took his nostalgia, her mind is going to think that she is Will, and she's going to start to only remember his stuff. And I think that's a really interesting idea, but again, also how much of a failure this was for Lady True. I mean, the whole purpose of this is that people would look at these memories and it would better themselves. They would get to see, you know, the choices that they made, how it turned them into better people from that, but instead they focus on what's most painful. Will, for example, you know, focusing on how it destroyed his family, focusing on how this just ultimately ruined him, how alone he really was, how he was closeted, how he never really got to get that, and he never got that credit that he really did deserve in that way. And so Lady True feels like a failure, and I really love diving more into her character here, and I think they did a really good job with that. And again, it makes up for what they didn't give us with her in the 4th episode. I like that we're starting to dive into that more here. And I think that was definitely very effective. But also the reveal that, you know, we have this character of Beyond. We thought that she was, in fact, Lady True's daughter. Turns out, no, she's actually a clone and basically a de-aged version of her mother. And the reason why Lady True has brought her back is because her mother was very old. She recently died, and she needed her mother at her side. So that's why Beyond is so much more intelligent, beyond her years in that way. That's why she's so much more inquisitive. That's why when Angela has that conversation with her about Topher, she's shocked that she's so articulate in that way. It's because Beyond is mentally like an old woman. And it shows that even though Lady True is someone that we should feel bad for, she's still a little bit, crazy. And I love the moment where Angela's like telling her like there's no way this is true, and she doesn't believe her at first about the Dr. Manhattan thing. And even though you can see Angela is kind of like sidestepping it, I think she also didn't want to, accept it. She didn't want to accept the fact that people are onto Cal and things like that. And I think that definitely, again, that whole scene is one that I'm going to want to rewatch for sure, because now we know what that was all about. It's not about her denying this information. It's about her not wanting to accept the fact that, holy shit, people are onto him. His cover is about to be blown. This man that I've been protecting all these years, I might not be able to do that anymore. And I think that's such a interesting idea. And I think that's more of what Lady True and Will's plan is all about. I think they have an inkling that Dr. Manhattan is in fact Cal. I don't think they're on him necessarily, but I think they have a way to protect him, to get Dr. Manhattan out of there. And I think that's what Will means by this is going to destroy Angela forever. The fact that, this will ruin their relationship, because Cal, again, does not realize that he is, in fact, Dr. Manhattan. And the question is, if they do separate them, is Cal the same? Like, there's a lot of places this can really go. I'm very interested in seeing where they really do take that for sure. Getting more into Angela, like I said, we really get to dive deeper into her, especially when it comes to her in Vietnam. We now know that, not only was she, again, she was in fact someone that was similar to Will in the sense that she's a badass, and the fact that she's someone who's very relentless in that way, but also the fact that she lost her parents at a very young age, similar to Will. There was this attack that happened, and her parents were, killed in that attack, and it's devastating to watch. But even more so is the reveal that Angela was actually inspired by Sister Night through watching a movie called Sister Night. Back then, they didn't have blaxploitation; they had masked superhero films, and one of them was Sister Night, which her father obviously forbidded her from because of the fact that it reminded him too much of Will and things like that, and the painful memories that came with all of that. And I just love the scene where we see her and, she doesn't know where she wants to go at this point. She feels very lost, but she eventually happens upon Will's ex-wife. And I love that we got to see this here, because June is someone who really seems like she could have given Angela a really good life. She was going to tell her more about her grandfather. She was going to help her out more. She was going to let her, watch Sister Night and things like that. Like, she was someone that was far more supportive of her. But then, of course, the moment where it seemed like things were good for Angela, she had a heart attack just right then and there. Moments after her and Angela are connecting, that's when she has her heart attack. And it's devastating to watch, because now we realize just how alone, again, similar to Will, how alone Angela really does feel now. And that's why she has this rage in her. That's why she has this need to end all of this. I think in a way, the 7th Cavalry is her taking her aggression on the people that killed her family in that way. And I think it's a very effective scene for sure. But like I said, everything we got with Lady True and Angela this week I thought was excellent. I really loved all the stuff that we delved into here. I love the reveal. I like that Angela is basically like a fugitive right now. Like, she didn't do what True needed her to do, so people are very much onto her in that way. And things really do seem dire at this point. It really does seem like everyone is on to Cal. I mean, one of the things in the Peteypedia this week was actually Cal's medical chart, and there's a lot that is unknown, and I'm wondering if Petey is going to take more of a look into that and see if they can maybe see that maybe there's something off about this Cal Jelani guy, and try to connect the two together. And I don't really know what that's all about, but I think that's very interesting. I think everything we dived into her was definitely very deserving. I think we have a much better understanding of who Angela is. There's still a lot that we don't know, like how did she get to Tulsa, because she was about to go to Tulsa with June, but that's when June died. So that's clearly connected to her meeting with Dr. Manhattan, so I don't really know what that's all about. But either way, I thought this was definitely very deserving. I thought it was very rewarding in that way, and I really loved everything we got with Angela in this episode. And like I said, this episode was very relentless. There was a lot going on. I don't think that's ever been more apparent than the whole subplot with Lori, which, I mean, this was absolutely insane. When she goes to June demanding these answers because, now she knows that Will was involved in, obviously, he got Crawford to kill himself and to hang himself and things like that, and that he felt that he was very much involved in the 7th Cavalry. But going back to the PDpedia, one of the big things that, again, is one of the reasons why I'm going to start paying a little bit more attention to it is that in the file with Lori talking to Petey about how, Angela revealed everything to her, she also talks about how she had this inkling that Judd was, in fact, a part of the 7th Cavalry, and so she goes to Jane in this episode to demand answers out of her because she really does feel that there's something that is just not right here. There has to be more going on with the 7th Cavalry than they really did believe. And that, of course, leads to this huge reveal, which I love the way that this was played, because, she's really grilling answers out of Jane, and Frances Fisher, I mean, look, this is a very talented cast of characters, but not a lot of people are talking about how good Frances Fisher is here, and I know she hasn't been in the show that much, but she played this up perfectly, really making you believe that Jane was very confused as to what Lori was talking about, that she was in the dark, that she was innocent about all this. So once she gets that phone call and it presses that button and just lunges Lori down that trap door, I mean, it's so shocking. It was not at all where I thought they were going to go. I thought Jane was going to be the innocent one in all this. I thought that Judd was going to be the one that was involved with this and she had no idea. But it turns out that's not the case at all. Jane was very much into this. She was very actively with the 7th Cavalry, and we get a lot more into their mindset. And I love that Lori just doesn't give a shit. Like, she wants out of this. She doesn't care what the 7th Cavalry's plan is. She just wants to bring this to an end. She just wants to bring them to justice at this point. And we get a lot more into Senator Keene. We basically realize that his whole shtick, it's basically what I thought, that his whole thing of wanting to become president, that was all a ruse. That was not actually what he's interested in. That's really just a cover-up for his real mission. His real mission is that he believes that being a white person in America is very hard. He's clearly very racist. He clearly has these very prejudice ideals, and he feels that, he is being threatened in that way. So he actually plans to don the identity of Dr. Manhattan and become the next Dr. Manhattan, and he knows that Dr. Manhattan is out there somehow. So the 7th Cavalry's plan is actually to go after Dr. Manhattan. They're going to try to turn Senator Keene into him. I don't exactly know how that's going to work, but this just gives us a lot more of a clear explanation of why the 7th Cavalry is so threatening in that way. It also kind of makes you wonder, have they had any inkling that Cal was Dr. Manhattan? Was there any idea that they had? Because, I mean, we know that they attacked Angela on White Night. We know this is when Angela, sustained those injuries, so she couldn't be a cop anymore. But so is it possible that maybe they had some idea? Maybe they hurt Cal and they saw something blue coming out of his skin. I mean, again, I might be looking into it too much, but I do feel like there is some sort of a connection there, and I'm interested in seeing what that really is all about. But again, this was a phenomenal reveal. I love the way they played this up. It really does kind of change everything, and I knew that Senator Keene was going in a very villainous direction. We knew that he was the leader of the 7th Cavalry, but this is on a whole other level. This is not at all what I thought they were planning, and now I'm even more invested in where this is really all going to go. I mean, it really seems like Lori's in kind of an insurmountable situation here. Like, the 7th Cavalry are so on top of things. I really don't know how they're going to be able to realistically bring them down, but I'm definitely very riveted into where this is really going to go moving forward. So it's such a crazy and just revelatory episode. There's a lot that's really going on here, and it makes moments like what we got with Adrian Veidt in this episode just not as impressive. Again, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed what we got here, but it is the one thing that I do think kind of brought this episode down for me. I really don't think, I understand why we needed this, obviously, but there just wasn't, it didn't feel like there was so much on the line here, because obviously now, we realize that he's actually been on trial for a year, and that he, I guess, has been on like a sense of parole. But basically, he goes into the court, which is virtually all just Mrs. Vickers and, not Mrs. Vickers, that's Sarah Vickers is the actress, Mrs. Crookshanks and Mr. Phillips, but of course they're decoys and things like that. And you see that they are really willing to just grill into him, especially when it comes to the prosecutor that looks like Mrs. Crookshanks. She talks about how, he's abused them and how he really has just been doing this all for himself and things like that. And you can just see that Adrian is willing to take the heat for this. He's willing to put the onus on himself, but he also just doesn't care. He's fine with just farting in the courtroom or whatever. And basically, he is charged as guilty. And now we're going to just have to see what his fate's going to be. And again, this was definitely very interesting. I always really enjoy what we got with him here. But this was really the first time where I feel like everything else was just so much more interesting that the Adrian stuff just did not stick out as much in this episode to me. It really is my only real flaw with this episode. I'm just really ready to see him connect more with the main storyline because there's so much that we know now that I'm really interested in, where this is going to go. I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, maybe he's Lady True's, father or something like that, because that is definitely a possibility. I mean, yeah, I know that he might have said in the comics that, he didn't want to love her or something like that, but who knows what could have happened. I mean, it's been years. There's a lot of possibilities for where that storyline can really go, but like I said, I'm just ready for him to get out of this maze or whatever he's in and get more into the main storyline because I feel like there's a lot more that's going on with Adrian that we know, and considering we only have 2 episodes left, it's really the only thing I'm kind of worried about for how they're going to handle it moving forward. So again, guys, a lot of stuff to talk about moving forward, but before we do, let's just get into all the technical stuff. I mean, directing in this episode, like I said, I love just how breakneck everything was here. Everything's feeling a lot more vital. It really does feel like everything's on the line for Angela and things like that, especially with this huge revelation now. The writing here was just superb. I love the way we're diving more into Angela, but also Lady True and her failure and how she's going to overcome that, and maybe get more of an idea of what her and Will's plan really is. I'm pretty sure it ties into bringing down the 7th Cavalry, but we don't really know at this point. And now knowing what the 7th Cavalry are planning, I mean, it makes them that much more threatening in that way. They're really starting to feel, like I said, less like just a small threat that we'll hear about every so often that's in the shadows, and now a full-fledged presence in that way. And Keen especially, I mean, James Wolk is doing such an incredible job in making you hate this character. Francis Fisher, I thought, was also phenomenal in this episode, and I mean, everyone's just doing a great job acting-wise here. So yeah, that stuff was really great. And then the Adrian stuff, like I said, is not bad. I'm just worried that they're going to rush out him getting back into the main storyline because I feel like they've really been taking their time on that, and it's the only thing that I'm just a little worried with how that's all going to get resolved. I really shouldn't because, I mean, Damon Lindelof knows what he's doing at this point, and I definitely do trust him, but it's just the one thing where I'm like, we only got 2 episodes left. I'm not really sure how they're going to be able to resolve all of that, but I guess we'll have to see. But the cinematography here, I mean, excellent as always. The score was just phenomenal. I mean, just everything technical-wise, they did a really great job with in this episode for sure, but especially the scenes cinematography-wise with Angela and her seeing Will's memories, the way they're doing, the way that they handled all of that, I just thought was phenomenally done. Like I said, this was another really great episode for sure. We're really starting to dive more into everything. We have a much deeper understanding of what's going on, and moving forward, I hope we get more of the relation between Dr. Manhattan and Angela. I think there's a lot more going on there than we know about, and I just cannot wait to see where all of this is headed towards. So overall, this was definitely one of the best episodes so far, and I'm definitely going to give Watchmen Season 1, Episode 7, an almost religious awe overall in A. But overall, guys, to my review this episode of Watchmen. Let me know what you guys saw this episode overall. Love your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.